What's up, everybody? This message is called "The Apple and the Temptation," and we are going to be talking about phones and it being that everything in the palm of our hands, us having access to everything in the palm of our hands, and then comparing it or just relating it. I guess not comparing it because technology and what it's doing today and how far sin has gone is just so explosive, I feel, compared to just the intro of Adam and Eve being tricked by the serpent and eating this fruit. So we'll go into all of it. But when Adam and Eve ate that fruit, the fruit that they were forbidden to eat from, the fruit that was knowledge of good and evil. There are some things when it comes to knowledge that can just be very damaging that we don't need to know. Let's use our kids, for example. Okay? There are things that our kids can hear about, can watch, but completely not understand what's going on, completely have too much access in their brains and in their minds, but completely not understand both sides of a situation, completely cannot understand how things really are, and can go act in violence, but not even know why they're going in violence because they are just told some things, but not everything. There are guys like we have so much access to everything, but then how much of it do we truly know about? We need to spend time in situations before we just go on social media, have access to everything, and think we understand. So let's go to the fruit that Adam and Eve were not supposed to eat from. And let's start there. So if you go to Matthew chapter, or gosh, I'm sorry, not Matthew. If we go to Genesis chapter 3, we go and read about the serpent going and tricking Adam and Eve, starting with Eve, into eating that fruit. Now, on this message, you'll see the front cover. I put an apple and a phone. Now, the apple, when we read the Lord's word and we see the fruit, we don't know if it was an apple. The apple is not saying this is how it was. The apple is just representing a fruit that has been eaten out of, and then phone and all the access that the phone gives us, and then this fruit gives us a lot of knowledge. This fruit gives us knowledge of good and evil. Telephones, electronics, all of it give us access and knowledge of good and evil. But here's the thing, is sometimes, and the Lord knew this too, we can see what he tried to prevent us from. We can see what knowing too much, causes. But there were some things that God just didn't want us to worry about. There were some temptations and things that God just didn't want us to be dealing with, to be facing. And when we go and read his word all throughout the Bible, we can see that there are just some things that we don't understand. There's such a bigger picture at hand, but we need to trust in him. But we don't. They didn't. They wanted more access. They were tricked. And we deal with the same battle today. And this is where this message comes from. So I have an iPhone, video cameraing from an iPhone. And when I look at my iPhone, when I think about the logo is a bitten apple. Have you ever thought about that? The logo on Apple is a bitten apple. It's a bitten fruit. Now, what would happen if we didn't have this phone? What would happen if we didn't have access to internet and social media and we had to go see things for ourselves? We had to go and try to go get to know people and understand them and understand their story, understand where they come from, understand why they are where they are, all that, it would change everything. But instead, we don't do that. We think we have everything in the palm of our hands, and that's all we need. So we think that that's all we need. That we just have everything in the palm of our hand with these phones. But I look at what's happening now. I look at this division. I look at this chaos. I look at how many of us just want to go and think we know everything. We know what's true. We know what's going on. And we take so much stuff that's fed to us on social media and the internet, and everyone is just so set and stuck with what they see and all that. And what's so crazy, what blows my mind, is we believe all that crap that gets put on social media, gets put on the phone, but yet we're still debating if Jesus is real. Like, guys, things are so twisted. Things are so not right. We will go and believe everything that we see on the internet, everything that we see on social media, but then we will question whether Jesus is real, and everyone wants to try to prove it, not just, all this stuff, but then we will just go and assume everything. And now, guess what? Now we're battling with AI. Like when I look at AI, when I look at division, I look at everything, and I think of what Satan would want. This phone can be used for great, but this phone, with the serpent and Satan's intentions, he can use this to terrorize the world, and it is happening. Division, pornography, sex trafficking, everything, all that crap, this whole damn, excuse my French, but all this evilness is getting spread faster, is happening faster. Transactions, all that crap is happening faster because he is able to use this device thousands of years ago. The first great temptation, it wasn't power, it wasn't money, it wasn't violence, it was knowledge. Not knowledge given by God, but knowledge taken early, outside of trust, and without wisdom. In Genesis, Eve stands in front of a tree. You get some water. And the fruit looks good. Looks promising. Promises insight, understanding, awareness. And when she takes a bite, she does. She gains knowledge, right? But it comes with consequences that she didn't expect. How about phones and technology and everything? Same kind of thing. You're getting access to knowledge, but how much of it do we understand? Do we understand the consequences? Satan wants us away from God, distracted from God, hating each other, chaos, murder, racism, division, all of it. All of it. Today, most of us carry that knowledge in our hand, in our pocket. Instant connection, instant awareness, instant answers. One swipe, we can see everything. We can learn anything, say anything, be anything. I mean, gosh, man. You can go create with AI, you can go create yourself to be whatever you want to be. Just like the fruit in the garden, and talking about this phone, the device itself, it isn't what's evil. The temptation wasn't the tree. The temptation was taking something God had not yet given permission to use freely. What Eve was really tempted by, the serpent didn't say this will ruin your life. He said you will be like God, knowing of good and evil. And that's the same lie today, guys. You don't need guidance, just Google it. You don't need wisdom, just scroll. You don't need community, just post. You don't need patience, just tap. The problem isn't access to knowledge. The problem is knowledge without maturity. Knowledge without maturity. Maturity. Who knows if more time went by, God would have given them that access to, to going and seeing that, having that fruit and everything. But we know that he really didn't want them to go and have it. that he didn't want them to go and have that access. And I can assume that it was for their own good. It's like our kids. Our kids. There are some things that we don't, that we don't want them to switch in my notes. There are some things that we don't want our kids having access to because they're not ready for it. They're not mature enough for it. They don't understand. I'm looking at this stuff with ICE and kids. And I was looking at these kids throwing water bottles or throwing stuff in the car and just all the irritation on both sides and all of it. And my kids asked about going. And I told my kids, I didn't tell them no. I told them I just wanted them to understand things better before they try to get involved in that. One, I was worried because we don't know when things can pop off and get crazy. There's just some times where you shouldn't be at places. Because right now the division is being fed so bad. And I see that people are battling really bad, and Satan is loving it. He is loving everything that we are falling for. I'll do another message, and I'll talk about, my opinions with ICE and immigration and the good and evil and all of it. Because there are truths to each side. There is good and bad on each side. People that cross illegally, there are people that cross with good intentions. And there are people that cross illegally with horrible intentions. There are people that are joining ICE agents to try to grab control of somebody crossing the border. Because if you go to any other country, it is way different than what happens here. There are some good agents and there are bad agents. There are good police, there are bad police. There are good white people, there are bad white people. There are good Mexicans, bad Mexicans, good black. Everything, guys, has good and bad. But we need to spend the time getting to know people and see why they're doing what they're doing. That person that you're judging on why they cross the lead, talk to them. Try to hear from them. Maybe they're escaping because a family was getting killed or murdered. But at the same time, maybe an ICE agent is trying to be an ICE agent because someone was on their fourth DUI coming across the border illegally and not taking any responsibility for their actions. And this person is not being racist, they are being patriotic for their country. Because I guarantee you, if we go to another country and pull the same stuff, dude, it wouldn't be tolerated. I'm just going to say that for another topic. Let's go back just into this category. Because again, there are ICE agents that are being way too aggressive, people that don't need to be killed and shot. There are things on both sides that are right and wrong. But if there's anything I'm going to be with you is I'm just going to speak the truth. And you know, and I have stuff on both sides. I got family I love. I got stuff on both sides where I see both views. But there still is right and wrong. There still is correct and not correct. There still is taking accountability and not taking accountability. So we talk about when knowledge is gained too early. With Adam and Eve, it was gained too early. We know we're going to compare the consequences from then and now. When knowledge was gained too early, innocence was replaced with shame. Connection was replaced with hiding. Trust was replaced with fear. And today, unchecked technology, unchecked technology could do the same. Awareness without wisdom creates anxiety. It really does. And how many people are dealing with anxiety now? Awareness without wisdom creates anxiety. Information without trust creates confusion. Exposure without boundaries creates addiction. Let me say that again, because that's happening. Exposure without boundaries creates addiction. We see it everywhere. Comparison replaces contentment. Outrage replaces understanding. Dopamine replaces discipline. And that was bad. The other danger is we pass it on, right? Eve didn't just eat the apple. She passed it to Adam. She didn't just eat it. She handed it to Adam. Today, we don't just consume, we hand it off to our kids, to our friends, to our relationships. We normalize what we consume. The question isn't, is this allowed? The question is this forming me? Is this forming me or is it deforming me? Is it forming me or is it deforming me? When we talk about God's original design still applies. God was never against knowledge. He was never against knowledge. He was against knowledge taken outside of trust and timing. Technology can be a tool for learning. It can be a tool for connection. It can be a tool for good. But only when it stays a tool and not a master. And here's the problem, guys, is these phones and everything are, man, they're our freaking masters. Just like the tree, the phone requires boundaries, wisdom, and accountability. I'm going to say it again. Just like the tree, the phone requires boundaries, wisdom, and accountability. So the real question tonight isn't, is technology bad? It is, what am I consuming? Who is shaping my thinking? Who, and see, that's the thing too, is who is shaping my thinking? When we go look at everything, all the division, everything happening right now, who is shaping that? Who is getting the thoughts in your mind? Because if we go and read God's word, we can go and read about boundaries and laws and all kinds of different stuff. We can look at going and loving thy neighbor, and going and welcoming an outsider, someone coming from another country. The God's word does say that. There are truths in everything going on. But whatever you are so stuck on, whatever you are so connected to, I mean, whatever it is that you are consuming, the biggest question is, who is shaping that? Who is shaping my thinking? And here's a big one. You guys ready for this? Am I trusting God, or am I replacing him with a screen? Are you trusting God, or are you replacing him with a screen? Because the fruit still looks good. The screen still glows. And the temptation is still the same. Take this, and you won't need God as much anymore. That's what happened with the fruit. Take this fruit of good knowledge, and you'll know what God knows. Once you know what God knows, you don't really need him anymore, right? Just like that apple looked good, that phone right there that we're looking at, right? Phone looks good, tablet, whatever, computer, all of it still looks good. Take this, you won't need God as much anymore. So here's what I'm going to close out with. Here's what I want to say. Here's what I want to advise. We need to go back to paper and pen. We need to go back to reading God's word. We need to go back to loving thy neighbor and building those relationships. We need to go back to trusting in God